are joining us for the next instalment of our January video campaign. We are calling it the Digitisation of the Landlord Lifecycle, and we are producing it in association with our friends and partners at Landlord. And we have reached the conclusion that you can digitise almost every aspect of landlord life. And throughout this series, we're going to be looking at 4 key areas, and that is pre-acquisition, acquisition, management, ownership and growth, and then exiting your buy-to-let investment. So really from cradle to grave. And right now we are still in the pre-acquisition part of the life cycle. And I've got a very special guest joining me now to discuss this. And Phil, welcome along. Happy New Year. Lovely to see you again.
Happy New Year, folks. Happy New Year to you, Vanessa. Yeah, it's great to see you again, and looking forward to what this year is going to bring. Hopefully, a little more settled than the last couple have been.
Indeed. Well, you know, I've just introduced this whole kind of concept of the digitisation of the landlord life cycle. And just first off, really, before we get going, I'm curious, what do you think of this idea of seeing where landlords can use digital tools to help, streamline and make their landlord life more efficient?
We're all in favour of it. We've put a huge amount of effort, even during lockdown and over the sort of past 12, 18 months, to digitise as much as we can and about everything we do, and with some great results. Really, we've changed our accounting package. We've moved from Sage to Xero, which has been incredible. A massive saving of time. We're still in the process, but we are getting all of our records digitised for going back to day one. For everything we've bought, all the records about each property are all going into SharePoints, so we can access them from. I just think that's the way you've got to be now, and that's certainly the way we've been trying to move. But sadly, having had 20 years of non-digitisation, to suddenly decide really needs to be done is just a mammoth. It's an endless task. But I mean, we do, we are spurred on by the fact that it's such a relief when you want something and you know where it'll be, and just massively time consuming to try and find stuff that hopefully we're getting towards eliminating now, and everything is either accessed from the computer, or most of it now is on an app on the phone as well. So we can find everything, tenancy agreements, applications, title deeds. It's amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic, and a great tip there from Phil, because if you're starting out in 2022, you can start by digitising your landlord life. You're not like old timers like me and Phil that have been going 20, 30 odd years and have had to go back into our archives and digitise everything. So Phil, we are in the pre-acquisition stage, as I mentioned, yes. And today we're talking about finance and how important it is to get your finance in place. And we firmly believe that this is actually in the pre-acquisition phase of getting started, because if you don't know what financial products you have access to, or if you don't have access to finance, then you're pretty much dead in the water, aren't you?
You are, yeah. And that's, I think, for me, the most annoying thing that you hear when you see people selling courses and whatever and saying how easy it is to acquire property. I think it is vital that you know how much you've got, what you can afford, and what you're going to be able to buy, because you've got to have all that information together, because once you start going into agents or calling and inquire, they will soon establish whether or not you're serious. And if you're not prepared, you run the risk of sort of being just perceived as a time waster, and you won't get deals come to you. And particularly at a time like now when there is so little on the market, it's really important. You want the agent to call you first, and they're not going to do that with people that they think, are we wasting our time? We can sell it anyway. why should we give him a call? Whereas if you've got everything together beforehand and you turn up and say, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking to pay, and here's the evidence that I can perform for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, chances are, and hopefully there's a lot of newbies watching this, newbies that are thinking of dipping their toe into property investment in 2022. And if you're one of those people, a very warm welcome to you. But Phil, you know, throughout history on Property Tribes, we've had newbies come on and they're completely and quite understandably overwhelmed by all the different strategies that are out there. And they come on and say, oh, should I be doing HMOs, holiday lets? You know, and the fact is that there's a strong possibility that as a newcomer, you won't qualify for certain products. So if you actually know which financial products you do qualify for, that brings great clarity to the direction that you can actually take. It's very specific to you, and that can only be a good thing, helping you find a way forwards.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there are so many strategies, so many routes, to go down with different lenders as well. I mean, we're quite lucky now in that primarily we're self-funding for all acquisitions, but we do, if we find a lot of stuff that will use more than the cash that we've got, we've been lucky that we've got a revolving facility. And we worked a very long time to get that, and it is quite unusual, quite hard to get now, I understand, but that works really well for us. But I would urge anyone that you need to work out what you want to buy and how you're going to buy it, and initially, I think it's well worth paying for professional advice, either that be from an IFA or an accountant, to come up with a strategy and then come up with how you're going to fund it. You know, are you going to fund it with friends? Are you going to go get a buy-to-let mortgage, or are you already in business and want to approach your existing bank about borrowing? I think it's important not to skimp initially. Get professional advice and come up with a proper strategy. As much as anything, is tax efficient, because that, when we started, you didn't give tax a second thought. You know, 1995, when we started, it was, whereas now I think it's setting up from the beginning in a tax efficient manner is just vital.
No, I 100% agree. And I think let's talk about the role of the mortgage broker, because they are so important to any property investor. I regard my broker almost like a partner in my business. And if you are coming into buy-to-let space for the first time, it would be very, very sensible to go and have a conversation with a broker and just get a rough idea of the kind of products that you, with your individual circumstances, can get access to, because you know, we've got so many lenders in the buy-to-let space now. They've all got different criteria, and it's really important that you go to a whole of market broker who has access to all of these products and see what fits for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, as I'm sure with you, when we started, there were no buy-to-lets. I think our first sort of 10 properties were business development loans at an outrageous, I think it was 10% fixed, the margin. But there is so much choice now, and just looking, you know, we frequently get emails for deals, and there are some amazing buy-to-let deals. And like you say, there's such an array of lenders and so many different niche little criterias and whatever, that to get a good mortgage, I think it's vital that you get, you know, a team around you of really reliable professional people, you know, your accountant or IFA, solicitor, and a mortgage broker falls into that as well, because you know, there are some really, really good deals, and you might find that, you know, your particular criteria makes you viable for you know, for a really good loan there's so much choice.
Yeah. So what we're really talking about is to get yourself deal fit or deal ready, so that if you do put in an offer put in an offer on a property, well, certainly this estate agent is going to say, are you proceedable? And that means, are you in a chain? Do you have your finances in place? And you want to be in a position to say yes. Some lenders will issue what's known as a decision in principle, which shows that you're good for the money, or indeed you may be a cash buyer, and maybe you can get your accountant to write a letter saying that you're in funds to the tune of what this property is likely to cost. And Phil, I think it's so interesting talking about the different products, because on occasion, sometimes that you find the product first and then you think, actually, I didn't know that product existed. I could use that and make that work for me. And I think a good example of that is bridging with a term mortgage at the end of it. Very, very useful when you're trying to do refurbs and recycle cash. So again, having the product first, it's always a bit like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But I think when it comes to property investors, the finance comes before the deal.
Most definitely. We've just encountered this actually. We I've got some properties that we bought this year that we've sold some, and there are some that we're keeping. So now we're keeping them long term. We will refinance them. We went to a lender that our main lender that we use all the time, and they were doing a much better deal, but to borrow more money than we needed, sort of twice the amount we needed. So what we've done is ended some of our old loans, borrowed more, and have just got a really, really good rate fixed for 5 years. So it's just a case of, what deals are out there, and there's deals in everything, and finance is no different.
Indeed. I mean, we've already mentioned that you started in 1995. I started in 1992, but seriously started building a portfolio in 2004. So Phil, we're really of the era of the analog landlord, where, as you mentioned, you use spreadsheets and post-it notes, and you had box files in your office.
Yeah.
Now, landlords coming to the sector now do have access to digital tools like Landlord, for instance. Do you think that landlords that adopt this digital mindset going forwards, do you think they're going to have maybe a little bit of an edge over those that don't?
Oh yeah, I think the whole thing now is so much easier. I mean, even things like Street View and Google Earth, we pretty much know when we've got something to go and look at. We will always look on Street View and Google Earth first, do a bit of desktop research that was never available until the last decade. I mean, we generally know if we're interested in something before we even get there, because we know what it looks like from the air, we know what it looks like Street View. It's a massive advantage that the advances in all forms of technology. It really was such a, when we go back to when we started, things have changed so much, and it is so much easier now.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think this whole concept of digitisation is something that we're going to hear more and more about in the years to come. And it's so interesting to hear that you, as what I term an analog landlord that's been in the game a long time, that you're actually going through all your records and digitising everything and getting everything literally at your fingertips. And as we say, it's really like carrying your portfolio in your pocket. And when you go to a lender, if you've got existing properties, then you can show them what your portfolio looks like through your digital tools and so on. So it's just going to make landlord life so much easier to follow this digitisation process across the entire life cycle, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not fully integrated into Landlord yet. We do use it. We haven't got everything in there. So we run that alongside a particular spreadsheet that we operate, that we update on a monthly basis, which our lenders absolutely love. So at any point, the oldest information we'll have on all of our lending is sort of a month old. And by the time we fully integrate into Landlord, we will be using reports from that to submit to lenders. So yeah, it's great. And like you say, everything then is on your phone, and we can access all of the information we want, and it's great. But we've still got many hours of scanning to do, but we will get there.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this call, Phil. Really interesting to hear your views. And everybody watching this, please do continue to stay tuned to Property Tribes over the month of January, because we are literally documenting every stage of the landlord life cycle that you can digitize to help optimize, track, and manage your portfolio, make it more efficient. And we're going to be moving on next to the acquisition stage, and that is the part of the process of the life cycle where you actually go through the actual process of acquiring a property and having the title registered to your name at the land registry. So join us as we continue our digitisation of the landlord life cycle. But for now, thank you to Phil, and thank you to our viewers for watching.
Thank you, Vanessa. Take care, everyone. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.